Well, thank you for joining us here. We are at the Atlanta Invitational, sponsored by Ultimate Guard on the SCG Tour. It's our last event before the Players' Championship, and it is our second of two semifinals. Ben Friedman versus Jim Davis. Now remember, because this is a best of 5 series, the first 2 games will be played without sideboards. The players are allowed to change their decks for games 3 through 5.
And Ben Friedman, our first seed, will be on the play. Ben has kept a 7-card hand, Jim on 6.
So we will start with Ben Friedman. It will be a turn 1, traverse the Ulfenwald. Now, pre-board, you'd expect Jim to be a favorite here.
On the draw, it's a little bit of a shakier issue, but he does have the tools, the Spell Queller, to get ahead of the Aetherworks Marvel. That's still in play on the draw, so he has that interaction. These are the games that Jim really wants to win.
Yeah, if Ben can split the first 2 games, it'll be an advantage for him. He has a first play of turn 2, Servant of the Conduit, making 2 energy. This could let him sneak under a Spell Queller if he has something like a turn 3 Aetherworks Marvel.
Yep, and Jim does have Revolutionary Rebuff in hand, but again, this cannot counter Aetherworks Marvel. No artifacts can be countered by that one.
Shows the rebuff. Can Ben put all the pieces together? And I think he can. It is the turn 3 Marvel, and this is where the 1 seed for Ben Friedman is so significant.
Yeah, just on the play, is able to get ahead of Spell Queller here, and with that on the table, Jim just has to hope that Ben just misses or can't accrue enough energy to keep spinning that to hits.
All right, so we go back to Jim Davis. He drew Spell Queller for the turn, so see, he did have that turn 3 counter. On the play, it would have been good. So now it's on the table, I guess my question would be first, can Jim get this Marvel off the table?
The only removal spells that he has are Declaration of Stone and Stasis Snare. There's nothing like a random Quarantine Field. This is just going to be on the battlefield.
So Jim will play a 3rd land. So then where is the strategy here? So if the Aetherworks Marvel is going to happen,
Jim's got to start applying pressure and fast. As the game progresses, the Marvel itself generates energy pretty naturally. Friedman's deck is full up of cards that generate more energy. When he starts activating it, sure, you can miss on big spells looking at 6 cards, but it's only a matter of time. If Jim is not applying pressure, Ben's going to be able to activate the Marvel over and over again.
Ben goes for Servant of the Conduit. Had it resolved, it would have been 2 more energy for him, but Jim is quick to Spell Quell away the Servant. But that's not going to play. Harnessed Lightning from Ben Friedman knocks the Spell Queller back into the graveyard. Servant of the Conduit into play, and we are up to 4 energy for Ben Friedman.
And here we see Ben on the beatdown plan. Jim is just kind of behind on every frontier.
Yeah, I mean, the damage is free, so he takes it, but this whole fight still seems like it's about that 4 energy in the Marvel.
Yeah, Ben's deck is really not committed to pulling ahead in combat. You know, he is playing Ishkanas. He could cement this beatdown plan, but he has his victory condition in play already. It's going to be that Marvel no matter what happens with combat, steps into nickel and dimes kind of things.
So Jim will now start applying pressure. It is Thalia and Thraben Inspector into play. This Thalia, a 1-of in his main deck, will cause Ben's creatures to enter the battlefield tapped.
Thalia is really good for Jim in the kind of spots when he's already ahead on board and Friedman's digging for Ishkana or some way to block, but when he's this far behind, it's not the most effective attacker.
It won't be very effective if it can't stay alive. Harnessed Lightning from Ben Friedman. He actually has a choice there. Whether he was going to kill the Thalia or get extra energy, but it looks like he can do both. He uses Lightning to take care of the Thalia, plays an Evolving Wild, sacrifices it to get himself back up to 6 energy.
And the only way that Ben is losing this game is by getting pushed around by some small creatures of Jim's while Ben struggles to hit with the Marvel. So getting up to 6 energy on this turn, activating the Marvel, that's executing his game plan. Killing the Thalia is eliminating Jim's outs.
Ben, yeah, you mentioned it, winning on every frontier. So up to 6 energy. He's going ahead and use the Aetherworks Marvel. And if you're Jim, you're hoping for a miss. 6 cards. What does Ben get? And it is not a miss. Here is the Promised End. And that Promised End is Emrakul. The 13/13 will be cast off the Aetherworks Marvel. Ben will control Jim's next turn. He's got more mana, more creatures, more life points, more everything.
Yeah.
And he'll hit Jim down to 14 before that turn.
And with this attack connecting year, Friedman has lethal attackers now. That Emrakul 13/13 flyer, the 2/2/2s.
Jim chump blocks with the Third Inspector, figures he's going to lose it anyway. And now we go to Jim's turn, and this is a hand that Ben can just destroy. Declaration Stone, Stasis Snare, Revolutionary Rebuff, and Toolcraft Exemplar are the cards.
So Ben for sure getting the Stasis Snare out of Jim's hand here. The play is most likely just cast the Exemplar, Stasis Snare it, go to Jim's next turn. Jim will be able to stop from dying by using Declaration and Stone on the server to the conduits, but then he's still, oh actually no, you target Emrakul. Yeah,
yeah.
So you can't get rid of both of these. Right, neither of these are instant spells. I backtrack a little bit. Ben actually really wishes that Jim had a 5th land here instead of the Exemplar.
And then he could play both the removal spells on Servants or something like that.
Right.
So it looks like Jim will get the Emrakul, but Ben will still get to more or less wreck Jim's hand. You know, he maybe Declaration Stone and rebuff it, something like that.
Right, you can get those 2 cards. The rebuff is not something that is likely to matter in this game, especially now that Ben knows about it. Getting the Declaration out of the hand is most likely the play. The Stasis Snare will use more of Jim's mana on the next turn. I
guess he could Stasis Snare the Exemplar. Somehow, I think 2 cards will be cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sees those are the pairings, right? It's either play a 1-drop and kill it, or play a 2-mana spell and counter it.
Given that the Declaration will ultimately allow Ben to draw a card, that's definitely a consideration there.
You want to leave him that one, maybe? Looks like he'll go the other route. He'll cast Declaration and Stone on the Servants, but then he'll have Jim counter his own spell and pass back. So now Jim gets his own turn. He does have an answer for the Emrakul in the Stasis Snare. Draws a land. It's an island.
This is the wrong order for Friedman, so that's a little bit of good news for Jim.
Yeah, something goes his way. He's going to have a tough time coming back into this game, though. Ben still at a very healthy 20. The Marvel's in play. Still 1 clue token for Jim Davis that's left over from Thraben Inspector. So 5th land, just a go from Jim. Of course, Stasis Snare has Flash. Doesn't have to commit it right away.
Yeah, and Jim has decided he would rather crack the clue than commit the Exemplar.
Stasis Snare takes care of the promised end, but Jim goes to 12 from those Servants. Aether Hub from Ben. We're rebuilding up. Getting more fuel for the Marvel. It's up to 1. Jim will draw.
We are kind of getting into a territory where if Jim is not able to assemble some blockers or an offense of his own, Ben might actually just win this game with Servants of the Conduit beatdowns.
It is a 3-turn clock right now, if you want to get all technical about it. Jim plays Toolcraft Exemplar, but with no artifacts, that's a 1/1. It's got Concealed Courtyard and Stasis Snare as the last 2 cards in his hand. Yeah, you're right.
I tell you, using a Stasis Snare to remove a Servant of the Conduit.
I don't want to do that. Ugh.
No, that would not feel good.
Back over to Ben. Thanks to these 2/2s, he's still ahead. Remember, he has the secondary plan of another Marvel. Here are the Servants. They swing another time. Will Jim snare one of them? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to do that. Jim takes care of a Servant. Ben goes in only for 2 damage, puts Davis down to 10.
And Jim's just really hoping that Ben is only able to produce just lands like basic forest, basic mountain, just draws that don't produce energy or forward Ben's plan.
No Aether Hubs, no Evolving Wilds.
Yeah, there's so many draws that at least over the amount of time that Jim is giving Ben will amount to 6 energy.
All right, players traded a pair of attacks that turn. So is an Exemplar from Jim and a hit from the Conduit from Ben. Friedman to 18 here. Draws Revolutionary Rebuff, passes back. Jim's going to go to 6 on this hit. And we're starting to get into that territory talking about where the medium beats are catching up.
Yeah, and Friedman, it looks like he has at least an Emrakul in his hand that he can't cast, but he's finally found some kind of action.
Here's Tireless Tracker. That's going to be great on this board. I mean, it's a 3-2. It's just better than Servant of the Conduit.
Right, and a land off the top would mean that Ben has a lethal attack on the following turn with Jim at 6.
Remember, when you crack clues off Tireless Tracker, those do give you energy for Aetherworks Marvel.
Right.
So now the idea of, oh, if Ben draws a lot of lands, it's okay. Well, that's not really true either. Everything's going to get him energy. Not that he needs it. Jim's last 2 cards in hand are another land and a Revolutionary Rebuff. Neither of those are going to play. You see Ben attuning for the Aether. Getting a Forest, so he's up to 3 energy. Gets a clue. Looks like he's going to draw a card off it, go to 4 energy.
Yeah, just proactively drawing a card, see if he can produce something that gives him 2 energy and enables him to marvel on this turn, in addition to forcing a chump block with his 2 creatures already.
Looks like he hit an attune, so that should work. He will first, though, swing both attackers. 2 Craft Exemplar chump blocks. Jim goes to 4. Yeah, Ben Friedman can spin the marvel again, but doesn't even need to. And another land from Jim Davis is not going to do it. Shows 2 lands, says, yeah, that's what I have. You got the game. 1-0, Ben Friedman hoping to repeat the last match he had with Jim Davis with these decks. He's gotten one of the pre-board games already.
Yep. And the big element there was largely just being on the play, being able to marvel under the spell queller of Jim's. So Jim really couldn't have done anything about that. Outside of that, Ben's hand didn't come together in a very threatening way, and really that Emrakul ran Jim out of some significant resources. It was all just really about that turn 3 marvel.
Yeah, turn 3 marvel on the play is one of the few things that Jim just doesn't interact well with.
Yep. And Ben did have a Harness Lightning as well, so
okay.
He had ways to compete with Spell Queller. It's a hand that very well might have won on the draw.
Can be tough both ways. So for Ben Friedman, the 23-year-old, this is his 5th Invitational top 8. That puts him already in very elite company. Maybe still looking for that win, though. From Baltimore, Maryland, 9 open top 8s with a win as well. He runs a philosophy blog. That's something I actually didn't know about Ben.
I think I've seen a couple posts. I don't know if he updates it regularly anymore.
Great stuff, though, for Ben Friedman. Already tons of accomplishments. And certainly this weekend has been at the top of the tournament most of the weekend.
Yeah, 40-card Friedman doing pretty well in 60-card formats.
So game 2 will still be with no sideboards. This time Jim will be on the play. So no turn 3 marvels just yet.
In that game 1, Jim was also on a mulligan to 6, so if he can have a 7-card hand on the play, might be able to pressure Ben.
So if over at StarStateGames.com, if you haven't already, you're going to want to sign up for the newsletter. We publish this every week. It is free, so there's really no reason not to do it. You can get the latest on the tour, watch the match of the week, get exclusive deck lists and advice from our authors and players here on the tour, as well as catching up with event results. You can find out more and sign up. StarStateGames.com/newsletter. It's free. It's great.
I was the writer for November. This week, I recommended the 10 modern decks that I thought were the best picks for this weekend. Bant Eldrazi was about midway in the list. That was the list deck that Ben was playing. My number 1 suggestion
was it Grixis?
It was Grixis Delver, and that was the deck that Jim was playing in Modern. So pretty good stuff in the newsletter.
Was Green-White Hexproof on your list?
It was not on my list.
Oh, okay.
Was there a top 8 competitor playing Green-White Hexproof?
Oh, probably.
Very popular deck. A lot of great players play Green-White Hexproof. SCG Live's own Cedric Phillips been known to slip some boggles in.
So, Ben Friedman on 6 here. Game 1, you would hope, if you're a Jim Davis fan, this to me, with Jim on the play and Ben on a mulligan to 6, this feels like a must-win game. If he's down 2-0, I don't think he can 3-0 the post-board games.
If he's losing this game, then I don't even know. This should definitely be his. If he has a hope to win this actual match, then he needs this one.
When the players go to sideboards, the matchup will go more in Ben's favor than it is currently.
There's changes that are moving in both directions, but it seems like on the whole, Friedman will be gaining more.
Turn 1 from Ben Friedman is in a tune with Aether. He has to set off Aether Hub, so has to spend an energy to get 2. For Jim, his aggressive start is the copy of Smuggler's Copter.
And server to the Conduit for Ben, going up to 4 energy on his second turn. Things kind of going as scripted so far for both players, though Jim would prefer to have a 1-drop already.
Yeah, so you have that turn 2 Servant of the Conduit again from Friedman. This is lining up a lot of ways like their game 1 did, except this time with Jim on the play, you see his Spell Queller and Revolutionary Rebuff, those cards in his hand, they're actually live now.
Right, the Queller would be great here. A Reflector Mage would likely be better just to bounce the Conduit, kind of push the tempo that way. You would give Ben some energy, but you're allowed to bully him more with the Spell Queller at that point.
And this is pretty interesting. It looks like because Jim's lands all came into play tapped that turn, Prairie, perhaps, he went for the option of playing Scrap Heap Scrounger, crewing the Copter, and attacking. So he will not have Spell Queller up.
This is a weakness of allied colored decks in Standard currently. Blue-white has 2 dual lands. Both of them have a way of coming into play tapped early. And you saw him reveal a land to Port Town. That was what he picked up off of his loot trigger.
Okay. Plays Toolcraft Exemplar. So a lot of power now. He played 6 power worth of creatures that turn. That's very strong. Now because of the Servant of the Conduit, there's a chance that he's going to get marveled out, but not this time. Ben will play Tireless Tracker, then get Game Trail, getting a clue, and pass back. This feels like a win for Jim, that if this is the worst Ben could do.
Yeah, not having Marvel, that's huge for Jim. Now Jim gets to untap with access to that Spell Queller. And for Friedman, he just has Sorcery in his graveyard, so he's not pushing casting Ishkana with Delirium. Jim just has to try to close pretty quickly from here. That's got to be his game plan.
Jim Davis up to 4 cards on the draw. He has lands number 4 and 5, a Revolutionary Rebuff, and a Spell Queller. He does not have the 3rd artifact that he would need to give the Exemplar first strike, but he does have a Smuggler's Copter. He can change the cards in his hand.
And Jim's deck is not great at getting 3 artifacts on the battlefield. It's Straven Inspector, the Smuggler's Copter, and Scrap Heap Scrounger. That's the sum of all of his artifact generation in his deck, barring using Declaration in Stone on his own creatures, which I don't think you're really ever going to do for that effect.
Yeah. So it looks like what Jim will do is he'll use the Exemplar to crew the Copter, draw and discard. Well, it drew another land, so probably means he'll discard one of his lands.
And Jim doesn't have any use for 4 mana on this turn, and he's already revealed the tap land.
This is a swing for 6 if Ben doesn't want to block. He could trade with the Scrounger, and Jim doesn't have any black mana in play just yet. Depends how much Ben Friedman values Tireless Tracker.
Yeah, Ben doesn't have a ton of mana just yet. You know, he's made all of his land drops, but it's going to take a little bit of time and a relevant amount of his mana to get the tracker up to 4 toughness. The Scrapper does just come back. It has that recursive ability, though Jim has not demonstrated any black mana just yet. So the trade is tempting. It'll help him save on life points. Also gets another card type into Ben's graveyard, which is not for nothing.
You see, this is a close one here for Ben Friedman. So if he got up to the point where he could play and crack 2 clues and make Tracker a 5/4, then it would be a very formidable blocker. But he's going to go ahead and block. If he doesn't ever have time to make that play, might as well trade, I suppose.
Right. It's looking like the game is progressing towards a point where he's going to have to make that trade eventually. So do it now. Save some life.
Jim plays a land and passes. We go back to Ben Friedman. It'll be his 4th turn. He could go all the way up to 5 mana here. Jim does have him covered, though, right? If Ben plays a cheap spell, it will be Spell Queller. And if Ben goes for a payoff, say Ishkana, then we have Revolutionary Rebuff.
Right. Ben's also not really at the point where Ishkana is a payoff spell. Yeah. Just 2 card types in his graveyard.
This is neat. He'll start with Vessel of Nascency. Will Jim quell this? If he does, Ben could play a 4-drop. And he will. Spell Queller is the play. It'll take the Vessel.
Ben already spent a turn not casting Aetherworks Marvel with 4 mana. So Jim definitely has to feel like the Spell Queller is more relevant. Just tagging any spell that is cast.
For Friedman, 2 more mana. He might have a removal spell. Looks like a Tormenting Voice is the play.
All right, that one's a bad one to get Spell Quellered, so small win for Friedman that it was the Vessel and not the Tormenting Voice.
Draws 2, hoping to see a land, but does he? Looks like it's an Aether Hub. Brings him up to 4 energy. He could still have 2 up. If he found something like Harness Lightning, this would be great. He could get his Vessel back. Hit Jim while the mana's tapped out. I think that's what we have. Taps 2, has to spend an energy for Harness Lightning, so down to 3. He will Lightning the Spell Queller, spending all 3 of the energy. So the net result, Ben stays at 3 energy. He gets his Vessel back and passes the turn to Jim Davis.
And Ben now has Delirium. So suddenly the Ishkan is more of a factor. Jim has that Revolutionary rebuff, but that is something that has to be on his mind.
The draw for Jim was Stasis Snare. We might go back to the Smuggler's Copter. He can keep reshaping his hand, and that's what he'll do, an attack and a loot. Draws another Queller, that's a good one.
Yep, that's solid.
You know, and this is still something that we saw last round with Jim, though he doesn't deal damage very quickly. So even a card like Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot out of Ben Friedman could give Jim's deck fits right now.
Yeah, Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot is eerily similar to Time Walk in this matchup.
Yeah, it's like Moment's Peace almost, right?
I guess it's like Time Warp because it costs 5.
I was going the 2, then the flashback for 3, right?
I like talking about blue cards.
I like the non-interactive things. Many a good combo deck has used Moment's Peace. If you're just not fast enough, you can just buy some turns. Ishkana's the play by Friedman, and Jim could not rebuff the Spider Queen quicker.
Of course, Ben does still have his Vessel here, and Jim's going to have to turn up the heat because Ben does have a little bit of time yet to use that to try to find something relevant, as Jim is running out of interaction.
Well, this will do it. Thraben Inspector from Jim. He crews the Copter. He swings for 6, puts Ben Friedman to 5, and he gets to leave up Spell Queller mana while doing all of this. If he only needs 1 more attack, 5, he'll put Ben to 5 and have 5 power in the air.
Yep. Ben really needs to produce another Ishkana.
And it just has to be Ishkana too, right? It's not Ishkana or fill in the blank.
Yeah, it has to be able to deal with multiple threats.
And not be spell quelled. So you could say like Marvel into Emrakul. No, that's not good enough.
Right.
The Marvel will get quelled. The hero of this game on Jim's side still feels like it's Smuggler's Copter. And a Stasis Snare on the Servant for Jim.
So now Ben would need untapped land Ishkana. I do like that Stasis Snare a good amount.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is an Aetherworks Marvel for Ben. There's a Chandra. Got good plays here. Do any of them matter?
You can Chandra down one of those creatures and
Get a blocker back.
right. If you Chandra down the Exemplar,
Yeah.
then Jim is only attacking
For
Copper
4?
Thraber Inspector. He could stabilize at 1 theoretically.
Traverse the Ulfenwald for Ben. I guess he's going to get a land and then make the play.
Yeah.
That's smart. Yeah, basic mountain.
And then if he top decks Ishkana on the next turn, he'll have the requisite mana to cast it. So that's significant there.
Chandra, Torch of Defiance, shoots down Toolcraft Exemplar. That's the play you mentioned. So there's only 4 power in play right now for Jim.
And he'll need to commit another body to crew up the Copter, in fact.
Draws another Revolutionary rebuff. Now this is interesting, right? He can put Ben to 2. He's got 2 counter spells in hand. That's not bad. But he can't have both. Like, I guess he can have both of them, I suppose.
So the rebuff doesn't really play against Chandra. There's a strong argument for Jim just attacking the Chandra with his 1/2.
Sure. Looks, and that's why he still has the chance to have 5 flying power on end step.
Yeah.
If
and
Ben plays into Spell Queller.
You can't just crew up the counter too. You get an extra look at a card. Likely that he just wants the 2 spells that he already has, but filter off something bad off the top of the deck.
I think there was one discussion about loot versus not loot. Generally, the answer is loot.
Always loot.
Jim does it. Discards the card he drew. It was Island.
It's a lot clearer cut in 60-card formats generally.
Yeah.
You're not peeling to your one mind control or whatever.
Yeah, you probably have. All your cards are good cards because you put them there.
Theoretically.
Or you just didn't do your job right. We go to Ben's turn. He will crack the vessel. He finds a forest. Now, Ben does not know this, but if he doesn't make a strong play here, Jim is going to kill him with the Spell Queller.
This is definitely something that Ben can reasonably deduce. He knows that he's under significant duress. Even if there's no Spell Queller, it's a 2-turn clock at least.
A lot of cards in hand for Jim. He's been looting all game and didn't play anything. You should assume Spell Queller makes a lot of sense right now.
He's cooking something up. And Ben's not in a position where he can really play around anything.
Ben says go. Jim casts a Spell Queller.
So
no response.
Wouldn't have made sense for Jim to bluff.
Cruise Copter. Is this a swing for 5? Cruise Copter. Ben says wait. And what patience here by Ben Friedman. This is awesome. He waits till Jim Cruise the Copter. Then he harnessed Lightnings. He gets it because he left up mana for the rebuff. He only takes 2. He goes to 3. Super well played by Ben Friedman. He'll even get to crack the clue.
Yep. Got a little bit of work to do from here, though, because Jim will have lethal attackers on the following turn.
Land Ishkana. Boom.
Yeah.
That's actually doable. Now, Jim could play Thalia here, and then, okay, well, Land Ishkana doesn't really do it. That's going to be the line. So Jim had an interesting choice. Rather, he could leave up Rebuff, or he could cast Thalia. This is a cleaner answer to Ishkana.
Ben has a main deck Kozilek's return. He was able to produce that.
You go to 1. Okay. Ben is just doing so many good maneuvers here to stay alive.
Yeah.
Gonna cast a Vessel, 4 lands, 3 lands and a Marvel. Hand is a land and a something. Is that enough? No. So Jim takes the game. It evens up the pre-board games at 1 apiece.
All right. Jim needed that game, and he got it. Now he's got some work to do in the sideboard affair.
And I just want to say, just very impressive on Ben Friedman's side of, yes, he lost that game, but we played that for 3 turns longer than I expected.
Yeah. He navigated very well. He didn't make the top 8 by accident.
At no point did he cast a card into Spell Queller there, even though it was really tempting to do so at a lot of spots.
Yep, displayed excellent patience here.
So we will go to the sideboards now. Players get to break this out. And I want to start with Ben Friedman. When we talked in the lead-up, this was the reason I liked him in the matchup. Unlike Jim's previous opponent with Aetherworks Marvel, Ben has a full transformational sideboard here.
Yeah.
So we have 2 Natural State, 2 Kozilek's Return, a Plains, 2 Sigardas, a full play set of Galvanic Bombardments, 3 Tireless Trackers, and an Ulamog. So walk me through how this works.
So the 2 Kozilek's Returns and the 4 Galvanic Bombardment are going to be really excellent in this matchup. Just 1-for-1 or sweep Jim's creatures, turn into more of a controlling role that has the ability to win with Emrakul. You start to look more like just a red-green Delirium deck post-sideboard.
Right.
And the other card he's reaching for as well is going to be Natural State. It kills some pretty significant things out of Jim's deck. The Smuggler's Copter, sometimes you'll want to get rid of Stasis Snare, so this card is quite good as well.
So here's the transform I was mentioning, and it's something I expect Ben to go to here.
Tireless Tracker to supplement this.
Not just 1. So he has 1 in the main. These are trackers 2, 3, 4. And Jim is expecting this, by the way. We'll get to Jim in a second. Ben boards all the way up to 4 Tireless Trackers. He cuts some number of Emrakuls. He might even cut a couple Marvels. He actually just is this green-red mid-range deck that sometimes marvels some things. And that deck I'm talking about has a really good blue-white matchup.
Yeah, that deck's not concerned about Spell Queller
really
it shoots
at
all.
It shoots it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have enough Eldrazi left to trigger the return, but like World Breakers, he's a 4 tracker, 3 Ishkana, 4 bombardment, 2 return deck, and then becomes that instead.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim knows about this for the record, so we're gonna go to Jim Davis's side. He has his own counterplay. Walk me through his sideboard.
Yeah, so sideboard is 3 Selfless Spirit, a Stasis Snare, and a Gate, 3 Spell Shrivel, Sky Sovereign, 2 Archangel Avacyn, another Thalia, a Declaration of Stone, and 2 Fragmentize. So he's going to be turning more towards the element that he removed from the main deck. We bring in the 3 Selfless Spirit, the 2 Archangel Avacyn. These cards are all good at fighting removal. Negate for much the same reason. He's going to want these Spell Shrivels just because hard cast Ishkana is a really big problem for him. So these are the cards that I expect to bring in here. This particular build of Marvel with this kind of transformational sideboard face up, the Fragmentize loses a lot of value. Sometimes we'll see the blue-white deck bring these in against the Aetherworks Marvel decks. And against this particular configuration, Fragmentize is going to feel like a mulligan even more often. So I'm mostly looking at these indestructible granting creatures and counter spells.
Yeah, so these counter spells are good. Yeah, Avacyn and Selfless Spirit. He has to combat Kozilek's return.
Yep.
But things will get harder for Jim Davis. Now, over on Star City Games, for those of you who are fans of our Versus videos, we have those, of course, for Standard and all your competitive matches. We also have our Commander Versus videos as well. Now, the Commander 2016 edition, of course, coming out around the holidays. Both the decks and the sets of 5 are now available for order. You can order them today and get the new Commander Versus playmats as well. So those are all already for sale on the site. Head on over starcitygames.com/Commander2016.
I've been hearing a lot about these new Commander decks. A lot of sweet stuff. One of them lets you proliferate every turn.
I like that. That's sweet.
Yeah. You can curve Astral Cornucopia into that on turn 4.
That's like...
Start ramping your mana.
Astral Cornucopia is like the ever-flowing chalice that makes colored mana, right?
Yeah, it costs XXX.
Okay.
It gets charge counters equal to X when you play it, and it taps for X mana, where X is the number of counters on it.
This is fun. All right.
It was a great card to do Photoshops of for Thanksgiving. You missed your opportunity this year, but next year you all have that in your pocket.
Yeah, you can fill that with cranberries and turkeys and bread and gourds. And
all of these things.
all right, Ryan, thumbs up, thumbs down. Gourd foods on Thanksgiving, so you know, like squash, pumpkin.
Thumbs down main course, obvious thumbs up for pumpkin pie.
Ben Friedman is on the play, game 3. He will start with Traverse the Ulfenvault. For me, it depends on the type of squash. Like, not into butternut, but, you know, like some of the smaller, greener ones, those are good.
I'm not much of a squash enthusiast, sports or food.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Verb,
Well,
I guess.
if they're together?
I guess
together?
of the squash categories, the verb I am the biggest on.
Ben Freeman, turn 2, Servant of the Conduit. That's the 3rd game in a row for that one. We saw this at game 2 on the play where he just, game 1 rather, where he just got an Aetherworks Marvel under counterspells for Jim. Mm-hmm. Talking with Jim, actually knowing about his sideboarding here, his only way that he could have interacted with that fast Marvel is he has a 1 of negate. I don't believe he's even bringing it in here. He's expecting Ben to be on that value plan.
Okay. I feel like negate is valuable even against that configuration.
Ben's turn 3, though, much less threatening. It is play and crack of Vessel of Nascency.
That looks a lot like he's digging for a land here. We'll see if he's able to make a land drop.
Yeah, he doesn't have one. You are absolutely right. He finds Tireless Tracker, and he has to say go. That's huge. He had the Aetherworks Marvel in hand.
Oh, wow.
Big
beat. Really heavy on lands, though.
He could use a Smuggler's Copter.
No artifact for this Exemplar.
Yeah, so that's a swing of 3. Jim will play Port Town, revealing a Plains, and pass. Now, he does, thanks to the stumble from Ben, cards now like Spell Queller or Spell Shrivel are very live for Jim.
Oh, yeah. They get a lot better. Ben picked up another copy of Servant of the Conduit. If Jim is able to revolutionary rebuff that, that's very significant.
That's like drawing a land, kind of, right?
Yeah. Rebuffing that's kind of like stifling a fetch land.
And now Ben really has to think here. So he's got a second Servant. You're right. It would be some one-shot mana. At the same time, he has Kozilek's Return in his hand, which if he thinks he may have to cast it, double Servanting is is kind of gross.
Committing more servants into that is a problem. But Ben's kind of got to be asking himself what kind of interaction Jim has in his hand. If he expects some kind of interaction, there's already the Selfless Spirit against Kozilek's Return anyway.
Yeah.
So that's not doing a ton.
Ben's going to go for Servant. Jim's going to counter it. Now, I actually want to ask here, I think Ben is happy that this was countered, actually.
Right. Yeah, I think that he would rather be able to make some kind of dent on Jim's board with his Kozilek's Return.
Yeah. In one sense, we've seen the closing speed of Jim's deck is not very quick. He swings for 2 with Selfless Spirit and then just says go. So Ben's still at 15.
Yeah, had to hang back his 1/1 Toolcraft Exemplar because Ben just had a Grizzly Bear.
Tireless Tracker is tried for Ben, and absolutely not. Spell Shovel from Jim Davis. It exiles the tracker. And also, it runs Ben out of energy, which he's stuck on lands already and just passes. That's big.
Sort of a Stone Rain there.
Yeah. Ugh. Swing and a pass. Ben's down to 12, though. Like I said before, the speed of Jim's deck is just trudging along.
Right. This Stormfront Pegasus plus Eager Cadet is quite the motley crew of beatdowns.
Now, Jim did pick up a Spell Queller, and against Ben's 2 lands, maybe 3 lands, that's going to be great. It'll counter everything.
Ben's cards that produce energy, his Attune with the Aethers, Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, they're a lot more relevant now that he's out of energy and has Servant in the Conduit and he's struggling on lands. But Jim countering them just matters a lot more, is really what that boils down to.
Ben, Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. Now Jim has to ask, am I going to Spell Quell this? What I like about this is I think Ben actually hit his land. I love that he has not played it yet.
Yes. Yes, it's sort of a win for Ben if Jim is light on counter magic, which of course he doesn't have very many cards in hand if Ben's able to resolve something relevant because this happened.
He is quelled and passed. Jim now at least 2 lands in hand, maybe Shrivel and 2 lands. If so, that's going to be good.
Right, that meant that Jim had enough stuff to kind of use the Spell Queller aggressively here and be pretty okay with it.
Ben down to 8 on the attack. Now keep in mind, because that Puzzle Knot was quelled, the Puzzle Knot did represent damage. Or not damage, it represented mana for Ben. It would have turned his Servant back online.
Right.
Ben going to keep trying for spells. He's had his last 2 countered. Can he get this one to resolve?
I would not even think about countering Tireless Tracker here with just 1 counter spell left. Jim already has a 2-turn clock in the air. I love that he had no action on that.
Yeah, he didn't counter. He swings back. Ben now down to 4. 1 more attack will do it, and Jim has a Spell Shrivel to protect. Draw from Friedman. That's a 4th land. Spell Shrivel will counter something unless they pay 4 more, so this is a hard counter for Jim. At least on this board. And this is also important, is that's all forests. So if we're worried about Harnessed Lightning, Ben can't play 2 of them. You can counter the first and you're good.
If he uses Harness Lightning to kill a 2 toughness creature, then he can use the Servant of the Conduit to make red mana. Or I suppose a 1 toughness creature as well. But mostly Ben is kind of in 1-spell territory, certainly with Jim being able to counter the first spell.
Ben knows that he'll pass. Jim's hand is 2 basics and a Spell Shrivel, but here is a lethal attack. This will force action from Ben. Ben did not want to play in a counter magic, but Jim's going to make him do it. All right, lethal. Can you deal? For Ben, he'll try Kozilek's Return. Jim, absolutely not. Countering it. Game over. Jim now up 2-1.
Frequently, you hear players say that Mana Screw beats Mana Flood as you kind of draw out of that.
It can, and well, yeah, you're right. Okay, so.
The trump card there, the way to overcome that, just controlling the tempo of the game. If you're able to pull ahead, chip in damage, doesn't really matter if you draw a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. If you can just stay ahead on board and just push through damage the entire game.
Right, I mean, a tempo deck, you look at something like Legacy Delver, a deck that's actively trying to take away its opponent's mana. I mean, in this game, you saw Jim basically playing like a Legacy Delver strategy I mean, instead of wastelanding his opponent, Ben just didn't draw the lands. But it's like the same game's playing out, right? You're the blue aggro deck, and they don't have mana, and you do, and then all their stuff stops working.
That was like a hard cast, force of will kind of game, but your point is taken.
Yeah, right. At some point, Jim has 3 power in play, and he's looking at his hand of 2 or 3 counter spells and says, I don't know what you're going to do anymore.
But it couldn't possibly matter.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no text boxes on your cards. You don't have enough lands. The way you'd beat that is by playing 2 spells in a turn, and Ben can't do it. Sometimes you can't even beat that. Legacy Delver strategies are real messed up.
Yeah, they're great.
Looking back to the sideboards here, Ben will be on the play again. And that feels like a bad beat for him. He had turn 2, Servant and Marvel in his opener. Sticks on 2 lands for a long time.
Vesseled for the land that turn that he missed it, saw 4 extra cards and missed more. Yeah, that does not feel good. This deck is generally quite good at keeping up on land drops. You know, you're playing a good amount of lands. There's 20 plus a 2 with the Aether as a 4 of 3 Traverse the Ovenwald. Then the Vessels as well. You know, there's a lot of ways to try to hit the land. Just didn't do it.
All right, so players here are going to be getting ready for game number 4. We're going to take a second, though, to tell you about the first Grand Prix offering in January from Star City Games. It's Grand Prix Louisville.
On January 6th through the 8th, make plans to be part of Magic the Gathering history when StarCityGames.com proudly presents Grand Prix Louisville. Register by December 9th for the Legacy format main event to compete for thousands of dollars in prizes and receive an exclusive playmat featuring Legacy staple and Kaladesh invention, Lotus Petal. Select the 3-day Infinite Challenge package to compete in all challenge events for one low price, while also walking away with the exclusive Lotus Petal playmat. All Friday challenges are also Grand Prix trials. Come out early and compete for buys in the main event and more chances to claim a Lotus Petal playmat. Prefer 100-card formats? Register for the Ultimate Commander package to play in 4 Commander on-demand events and take home a Commander vs. playmat and Ultimate Guard Flip and Tray deck case. And don't forget to come say hello to Grand Prix Louisville's many special guests, including cosplayer Christine Sprinkle and an artist alley full of fan favorites headlined by guest of honor Rob Alexander. Be part of Magic the Gathering history. Register for Grand Prix Louisville today.
Welcome back here. This is game number 4. So after losing the first game, Jim Davis has taken games 2 and 3. And that will get him 1 game away from the finals and also has implications for the player who's certainly watching us at home, Todd Anderson. With 1 more win, if Jim wins this round, Todd Anderson will be our last player in the Players' Championship. He will lock that slot. And the reason being, Jacob Baugh, the other player in the finals, and Jim Davis, they've both already qualified.
Yep.
So at that point, right now, the 2016 standings, Todd is the first person out. A win by Jim or Jacob would move that line 1 more spot down, and the last year's runner-up would qualify again.
When it comes to needing to root against 1 player for 2 matches, Ben Friedman's not high on my list of players that make this comfortable.
Turn 1, a tune from Ben. Kind of interesting that Jim Davis, the person who beat Todd in the finals last year, might be the person that sends Todd back to the Players' Championship.
One of life's sweet ironies.
For Jim, Port Town showing Plains. And he has his 1-drop Toolcraft Exemplar. This is the non-standard part of the deck, though, right? Normally it's just Thraben Inspector for these decks.
Yep, this is the transformation of Jim's deck. This card, Toolcraft Exemplar, and Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Second attune from Friedman brings him up to 4 energy, leaving up red. I'm still waiting for this mid-range plan from Friedman, this trackers and bombardments. Certainly against a start like Port Town Toolcraft Exemplar, there's a lot to like about that.
Oh yeah, he's got bombardment mana. We'll see if he's able to execute that plan.
Smuggler's Copter from Jim Davis. Will it turn the dwarf into a 3/2? It will. Does Ben kill it? Or does he take 3? He looks like he takes 3.
Looks like he's got a red card, but it's a Harnessed Lightning.
Close. Draw here for Ben.
You know, technically, he could have cast the Lightning on that turn as opposed to the Attune with the Aether, and then use the Attune on turn 3. Possible he's got something like Kozilek's Return that makes him want to just play that Patience. Also, saving the Lightning for something that matters more, say this Smuggler's Copter, I like a good amount.
Main phase, Kozilek's Return takes care of the 3/2, and he'll pass. Now that's a nod to Spell Queller that he timed it when he did.
Yeah, and this would force Jim to play something at sorcery speed to crew up the copter if he wanted to attack this turn. If he does that, suddenly Jim doesn't have Spell Queller mana up as Ben goes into his first turn where he has Aetherworks Marvel mana.
Jim Davis here. We are back to him. He'll play Thraben Inspector, getting a clue. That'll get ready to crew up Smuggler's Copter. It's 3 more damage. Ben down to 14. And Jim's hand's getting pretty good. You see after the draw here, he's got a Spell Queller, a pair of Reflector Mages, and an Avacyn, and some lands to go with.
Avacyn and Spell Queller are great. I wouldn't be surprised to see him pitch the extra Reflector Mage. It's not at his best in this matchup.
No, if Ben had a tracker in play, it'd be pretty sweet, but he doesn't yet. So Jim will discard the Reflector Mage and send Ben Friedman down to 14. Land is played. Jim can, for Jim as well. For Ben, we see Tireless Tracker. He'll try for it. Is there a rebuff? No, there is not. He has an Evolving Wild, so he'll play and sacrifice. That's 2 clues for Ben. And if your opponent discarded a Reflector Mage, you might suspect another one's coming, though.
Well, the card's weak enough in the matchup where there's plenty of stuff you would keep over it. But I would not be at all surprised to see the second one if that's what Jim goes for in the following turn.
Back to Jim Davis. Just he's extremely liked to Reflector Mage here. See, he draws a land, so he has lands. His hand lands 4/5, Reflector Mage, Spell Queller, Scrap Heap Scrounger, Avacyn. He has tools for each situation here. He'll Mage and reflect the tracker back into Ben's hand. Crew the Copter, swing for 4, loot. Draw and discard another Copter. Does he want it? Does he want the Scrounger? He's got a lot going on.
He's already had a creature in the graveyard. No black mana as of yet to recur the Scrounger, so it's not the free discard that it often is.
What I do like from Jim Davis is if he gets a second Smuggler Copter in play, he's got Ben down to 10. Then even something like the Kozilek's Return coming out of the graveyard to sweep his board, he could just race from there. You don't hit a vehicle that's not crewed.
Right, he would have some insulation against that. Currently, Friedman looks like sorcery instant land in the graveyard, so this is pretty nice. It made the Reflector Mage kind of free. Friedman won't be able to capitalize with the Delirious Ishkana here.
Okay, and that's pretty big as we go to Friedman's 5th turn. Even an Ishkana would just be a 3/5. Jim did discard the second Copter there. Ben plays a 5th land and says go. He is showing a lot of weakness here, especially when you look at the fact that Jim has Avacyn in hand. Letting Jim untap here may be a situation that Ben cannot recover from.
And I've spotted a Harness Lightning in Ben's hand. He's going to need more than that one piece of interaction, though, if he wants to overcome what Jim's up to.
Yeah, I mean, Jim has Avacyn. He would do very well against Harness Lightning.
Yes. And with Ben not even having Delirium, he's well off of being able to cast Emrakul here, which would be how he'd be capable of activating that Kozilek's Return from the graveyard.
Draw for Jim is a 6th land. Got a lot of great stuff here. He has Spell Queller and Avacyn. He'll play the Port Town. Shows he has land 6. Scrap Heap Scrounger, the last card. So, he'll get a crew for the Smuggler's Copter. Ben is going to Harness Lightning, and now is it time for the Angel or maybe the Spirit? Both are pretty good.
Yeah, if he goes for a Spell Queller, it gives him the ability to also cast Scrap Heap Scrounger on this turn. Really turn up the heat on the beatdown front and then save the Avacyn for something else down the line.
So the Copter is already a 3/3. Yeah, Jim has to decide which way to answer the Lightning. Now, sweepers are the things he needs to play around here.
So another Harness Lightning would take care of the Avacyn. You'd be able to save the Copter anyway, but that'd be problematic.
There's the second Harness Lightning. This is a big one, though. So the Lightning kills the Queller. The second Lightning kills the Copter, and it's only an attack for 2. Ben down to 8. Jim comes back with Scrap Heap Scrounger.
So because Ben had double Harness Lightning, this is actually why I really like going for Spell Queller over Avacyn. Yeah, Ben killed a lot of stuff on that turn, but Jim still has his biggest card.
Yeah, he has 6 power in play and still has an Avacyn in hand. You're right.
If Ben's hand was weaker, sure, losing the Spell Queller would be pretty bad. Or like you go for the Spell Queller, he only has one removal spell, suddenly you're further ahead on board. But now he just has spent Ben's stuff and has Avacyn backup. So this is a great position for Jim, as long as Ben's not able to capitalize from here. And again, Ben's still off of Delirium, instant sorcery land currently.
And if Ben gets down to 3 on an attack, it's not going to matter if he gets a Delirious Ishkana. The Avacyn flipping will lose him the game anyway.
Right.
You see Tireless Tracker and Emrakul both in his hand. He still only has 3 card types in his graveyard, so very far off the promised end. He will cast Tireless Tracker. Looks like he's just going to crack a Clue with the last 2 mana, hoping to find maybe another land.
If he cracks a Clue, he would like to find a Galvanic Bombardment to clean up this board a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know that he has another land at the moment.
He would definitely need that.
3 cards for Friedman. Trying to decide, does he want to leave up mana, represent something, or does he just need to make those land drops? Looks like he has a forest in hand, so he has one more land drop. He will main phase crack the Clue. The idea would have been if he played forest first and left up red, then a Galvanic Bombardment draw would have been live.
The hedge here is if he draws Evolving Wilds, he gets more clues, though he's kind of choked on mana. I don't think that advantage is as high as drawing into Bombardment.
If he draws a Tune or Vessel, though, you know, you can play to one of them, right?
Yeah, that doesn't seem very significant. That seems a lot worse than casting Bombardment now, especially now that Jim is tapped out. You have some assurance that you'll be able to at least resolve Bombardment, buy yourself some time.
It says go. I don't know how many natural states are boarded in. If those are both boarded in, then it's pretty close.
Okay, that's pretty much the same thing against the Scrounger.
Yeah. Doesn't hit either way. Does make the land drop, gets another Clue, but we're back to Jim Davis. He's got 3 attackers. Friedman has 1 blocker. Jim had an Avacyn and a land to start the turn. He's picked up 1 more card. He would love to find something like Reflector Mage. That would send him to the finals here.
Yeah. And still no black mana for the recursive ability on the Scrap Heap Scrounger. If he wants to get very aggressive with the Avacyn, he can just make this attack. If Ben puts Tracker in front of Scrounger and Jim just gets to save it with the Avacyn, that's a big win. If Ben makes a different block, then Jim gets the extra point of damage by the Scrounger connecting, and then he has this Avacyn threatening to flip on the battlefield as well. Archangel Avacyn still a very powerful card.
Yeah, we have not seen much of her this weekend, but I mean, look at last standard. She was just maybe the best card in the format. Jim hasn't even cast anything like Gideon this match. There are some haymakers that white decks get to play.
4 Gideons in his deck, but he's just been doing it with 1, 2, and 3 mana creatures.
And Jim's just counting. What he has, we know he has a Plains and an Avacyn. He's gonna send the team. No black mana. Ben can trade with the Scrounger or eat the Reflector Mage, or maybe none of these. I mean, Archangel Avacyn is in play, or in Jim's hand, rather. And Ben's gonna block the Reflector Mage, so he's setting up to take 4.
You know what the bad thing about taking 4 is?
Puts you to 4?
You know what Archangel Avacyn's power is?
I think it's 4. Toolcraft Exemplar from Jim Davis. His last leaves up 5 mana and an Avacyn. That was not a bad draw, since he was going to have 6 mana on the turn. Just that additional threat. Another Clue for Ben Friedman. He will draw. Servant of the Conduit. 6 energy. He currently does not have an answer to the Avacyn. Will Jim go for it on step? Ben, he's risking Harnessed Lightning by doing this. Does Jim want to call on it? If he goes for this and Ben does not have the Lightning, Jim will go to the finals. And he tries for Archangel Avacyn. Here is the check. Does Ben have the removal spell? This is for the match.
It's looking like he does.
And Harnessed Lightning by Ben Friedman keeps the game going.
All right, that's really big for Friedman here.
Wow. All right. We're still going back to Jim's turn. That was his trump card.
Jim only has 2 Avacens this weekend. Both those copies coming off of the sideboard. So a lot of his top deck is on average much worse than Avacen from here. A Gideon will be great.
And if you go back to last turn, right, and if Jim main phases that Avacen, saves his Reflector Mage, then this swing this turn does more damage, might even be lethal. He'll play Thraben Inspector. He's going to have to rebuild.
A removal spell would be good here to get that tracker out of the way.
Yeah, we're still thinking like Reflector Mage wins, right?
It would be really good.
So Jim plays Inspector and immediately draws a card. He's just trying to find a way for 4 more damage to come across. He has 3 attackers to just 2 blockers for Ben. Ben is tapped out. Yeah, Reflector Mage would just be lethal. The attackers of 3, 3, and 1.
Mm-hmm. Reflector Mage, if you still got Stasis Snares, Declaration in Stone.
Any removal spell wins here for Jim. But he was drawing off the top. Is it enough? The Tireless Tracker is now a 5/4. It's at the point where it no longer trades with anything. It just eats an attacker. Jim is going to swing the team. Can't swing Thraben Inspector. So some blocks from Ben. He'll take down the 3-power creatures. He takes 1, goes to 3. Jim loses both creatures. Ben loses Servant. That seems excellent for Ben. I'm not sure I completely get it. A pass back. Maybe Jim has Spell Queller as the last card. That would explain it.
Well, Spell Queller is already a 2-turn clock. Going from 4 to 3 doesn't really make a difference.
Well, it does if you have 2 1/2s. Right?
Sure, if those are able to connect.
Maybe? This is going to be close. We'll see what Ben
Could
has.
be. I think that the card that Jim has in hand is mono white. Let's say if it is Avacen, he's setting up so that the trigger can kill just.
I do like that.
Doesn't matter if he has spiders or whatever.
So Ben gets to untap. Where to go now? He'll traverse the Ulfin Vault. I don't know that he has Delirium yet.
He just binned that Servant of the Conduit in
So
combat.
creature?
I believe that's his 4th combat. He
You're
has
right, that was the
instant
4th.
sorcery land.
The Evolving Wilds.
Yep.
Yeah, the Lightnings, Attunes, and then the creatures. Yeah, so that works. It's on.
And conveniently,
Grab the
5
Graph
lands
Widow.
other way. This looks like an Ishkana to me.
I would not mind casting one of those.
Doing some counts on mana, seeing how far he is from Emrakul. He's a ways off yet. I believe it is exactly 4 card types.
Yeah, so this is, you're right, 6 lands in play, 4 card types in the yard. He's thinking about World Breaker here.
It blocks flyers. I see the motivation.
I get it. It also triggers Kozilek's Return.
Does that too?
But we're going to go the safe route for Ben. He takes the card that, we've seen a ton of this weekend. He's going to go for Ishkana Graph Widow, just try to set up a wall of spiders to carry his way toward the Eldrazi. And here's Ishkana. Is there a counter from Jim? There is not. Trio of 1/2s.
All right, what's Jim got left over?
And he plays a land, makes a clue. Up to 7 mana. Just a pair of 1/2s. It's looking harder and harder to get that last damage in. The Drop Concealed Courtyard certainly won't do anything.
I want to say that the card in hand is Avacen. But it's going to be really hard to flip that using Thraben Inspectors against 1/2 spiders.
If Jim draws Selfless Spirit, he'll just get to win.
Yeah, assuming nothing goes wrong.
I guess something, yeah. Tireless Tracker is going to go to work again. Let's get some more cards. He'll sack a clue. Tracker getting mighty large here. A 6/5 currently. Another clue, now 7/6. You see Ben, a backup Ishkana was the first card drawn. He can turn the corner so quickly here because of how much power he has in play. Mm-hmm. No Aether Hub yet, though, to activate Ishkana. He will cast Traverse the Ulfin Vault, though. Maybe just a land he'll get. Yeah, Game Trail. I guess the advantage, that brings him up to 6 energy. No, game trial's 5. Thinking about it, yeah. Aether Hub, that's 6 energy and the black source. I like that a lot.
You'll be able to start activating Ishkana, just the extra land, you know. There's no real way for you to traverse into more card types in your graveyard. You can't find Vessel of Nascency with Traverse the Ulvenwald, but you can build your lands towards Emrakul.
Servant of the Conduit makes 2 more energy, goes up to 8. He's left up single red. Will he swing the tracker? I guess his 7/6 only has 6 toughness, so he would lose his creature to an Avacyn at this point. I wonder, when does Ben turn the corner? And Jim, end step Avacyn.
Jim's looking to top deck Selfless Spirit here and hope that nothing goes wrong.
Concealed Courtyard. That's not going to work. And this Ishkana, what I like here also, even if Jim swings the whole team, Ben does not have to kill any of the creatures.
Right.
Sometimes 1/2s are very hard to block without killing them.
This Concealed Courtyard, I suppose he already has one on the battlefield. He can use that to recur Scrap Heap Scrounger. He can make attacks with that. For a couple turns, Ben can just throw a 1/2 spider in front of that, so that's not an issue.
Yeah, we do have to watch. This does give him some insurance against Kozilek's return with that Scrounger as well. Ben has to be careful about sweeping the board because Jim will end step make a 3/2 and hit him. And here's Emrakul, the Promised End from Ben Friedman.
Now with that Avacyn on the table, Ben can just attacks the Avacyn into the Emrakul. Or the Ishkana and the spiders. This is kind of closing Jim's avenue to actually win this game.
Jim on end step will bring the Scrounger back into play. We untap, go to Jim's turn. Ben's controlling it. Jim just has 2 lands. He's going to lose his board here. It looks like Avacyn will get blocked by Emrakul. Ishkana will block the Scrounger. Tracker on Thraben Inspector. 2 spiders on another Inspector. Jim is going to lose everything.
So you're asking when Ben is going to turn the corner? Jim's
She's
dead
not
as,
even,
as
is he?
soon as Ben untaps. He's going to have 1 lethal attack.
Swings. Jim loses the whole board. Jim gets a turn. You're right. Yeah, Ben has 20 power in play. The answer was basically never.
He's not turning the corner. He's just closing the door.
And what a comeback this game was for Ben Friedman. I mean, you know, we were looking with when Ben at 3, there was an Avacyn where Ben simply needed Hardest Lightning to not lose.
Yeah, but from there, Jim was top decking, and we're going to game 5.
So well played by Ben Friedman. He is still alive. He's going to 5 against Jim. It's that kind of patience from a bad situation that got him here to the top 8 with such a good record. And this one's going to decide it all. Jim Davis will be on the play for the last match, but Ben, it's his first game win since game 1. He ties it up at just the right time.
So Jim will be on the play here for the deciding game.
And we definitely saw some of the mid-range plan by Ben. Tireless Tracker felt like the card that ended up winning the game for Ben.
He drew a lot of extra cards off of the tracker. It also was just bigger than everything Jim was up to in combat, so he got to eat a couple creatures that way.
Yeah, so when you have a creature that blocks 2 things and eats them and draws 4 cards, that's huge.
For a card that's cost at green 2, you're getting a 5-for-1 off of it. It's pretty good.
You see Jim, he's actually looking at possibly re-sideboarding. I know going into the match, he was looking at Shrivels, Avacyns, Spirits, and nothing else. Maybe that game he has a new plan he wants to be on.
So when it comes to leveraging the counter spells, I could see Gideon being a player draw kind of card. You could fluctuate the numbers on that.
Yeah, he had talked about going to maybe 3 or 2, but certainly not. I mean, Gideon's been absent this whole match.
Yes. It's a lot of mana to spend at sorcery speed.
So this match, a lot riding on it. A spot in the finals on the next game. If Jim Davis wins this game, it'll send Todd Anderson to the Players' Championship. If Ben wins it, then we're still playing.
One thing I will say about Gideon's really good against Galvanic Bombardment.
Yeah, you can't really bombard him too well.
He's really good against Harnessed Lightning.
Yeah.
He's not even bad against Kozilek's Return.
No. He doesn't care much about burn spells.
No.
Some recycling. The players are going to shuffle up. Now, coming up after the holidays, we have the next Magic set release that is Aether Revolt. And over at StarCityGames.com, we have another one of these great playmats. These are available, the Creature Collection. Pandra Noir, of course, she is the heroine of Kaladesh, available in all her, on a playmat with all her other creature friends, see, from the Inventor's Fair, leading them on in battle. Now, these are now going to be available at participating stores. You can register today to make sure you get one and find a participating store near you at StarCityGames.com/pre-release.
I thought your line was going to be in all her panda glory.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah, it's not a great line.
No, we had to, it was bad, we audibled.
But you understand how I thought it was your line.
I think, it was certainly the on the board play.
I do like kind of the cat and mouse game, kind of the secrecy of the sideboarding here when it comes down to counter spells versus Aetherworks Marvel, Galvanic Bombardment versus the rest of your deck, how many Marvels I have versus how many Gideons you have.
With the counter spells, the big cat and mouse game would be on negate. Could be really bad or good. Spell Shrivel probably doesn't matter. Jim's going to play it regardless.
So negate's really only bad if you're getting out-muscled by Ishkana, but whether you're casting Harness Lightning or Aetherworks Marvel, I'm pretty happy having a negate.
Galvanic Bombardment would be the argument against, I suppose. You don't want
trading down on mana, but you could really come out on top with the actual card economy with that interaction, which I'm fine with.
It is a pretty good card in the deck. We'll see what Jim goes to. The worry is if his first threats are getting killed, he doesn't want to end up with a hand with double counter spell when he's losing his threats. If he can't.
Yeah. His cards are just on average less powerful than Ben's cards. So as he falls behind on board, his counter spells start to get really bad. That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, we've seen some revolutionary rebuffs. Basically, if they ever top deck them, instead of it being in his opener, it's been a bad card.
Yeah. And that's something that we sort of do see with these blue-white decks against really any interactive Ishkana deck. As soon as they get the opportunity to cast a rebuff, they just take it. That card becomes useless pretty quickly.
It's a big thought going into these last hands. You can see it, a shake of the head on Ben's side. On Jim, he's the big contemplation. This is the game that matters. Decide, is this the hand they want to win or lose on?
Played 16 rounds, 5-game quarterfinal, 5th game of our semifinals. This game, this is what matters.
Jim's in. Ben is too. All right. Here we go. Game number 5. Jim Davis on the play. He will start with Thraben Inspector.
Best white card arguably ever printed.
Vessel of Nascency for Ben Friedman off a basic forest. Looks like he has another forest. A land-heavy hand, if you would. But Kozilek's Return in the grip as Ben goes to 19. If Jim commits enough X2s to the board, he could get a lot of value off it. And here we go, Scrap Heap Scrounger, no black mana. These are all good things for Ben, and especially for Kozilek's Return.
And Jim's deck not having Smuggler's Copter on turn 2 is significant. That's his best possible. He's able to apply pressure with this, though, as you said, this is not great against Kozilek's Return, that's for sure. Game
Trail will show a third land. For Ben, he's got the option of 2-mana removal, but also that Vessel on the table. And he'll go for Servant of the Conduit. Turn 2 play, Ben has had this one each game this match.
So something that I really like that we've seen Ben do is he casts Servant of the Conduit when he has Kozilek's Return in his hand.
Right.
And it just kind of invites Jim to play further into the return. If Jim, say, top decks Toolcraft Exemplar, he might just play it. Ben is going to be untapping with 4 mana, assuming that he's able to make a land drop on the following turn. So Jim does have to be concerned about Aetherworks Marvel.
Yeah, that mana ramp puts pressure on Jim for sure. He actually did top deck Toolcraft Exemplar this turn on top of it. On 3 mana, though, it looks like he's going to go, yeah, and Toolcraft Exemplar and Scrap Heap Scrounger. He's going to call Ben. And bad news, Jim Davis, he had it.
Ben's line's looking real good here.
I'd gladly pay 1 card to give for 2 of yours, especially if I'm trying to play mid-range. And that is exactly what Ben did. Now, Ben hasn't cast it. You wonder, is he going farther with this?
No,
no. I mean,
no.
You don't want to risk it.
He's patient. He's not insane.
I mean, the next attack doesn't kill him, right? He can take another hit. We can crack the vessel. It'll be fine. Game trail showing that same land. He'll attack with Servant. I guess that's got to be suspicious for Jim. You may know. He actually gets the 2 free damage. Jim goes to 18, and yeah, here's Kozilek's return. Jim loses the board. Yow. And he doesn't have the black mana that he would need. If he had a swamp or a concealed courtyard, this would be fine. He'd get these scroungers back. He'd crack a clue.
Yeah, this is a lovely hypothetical scenario, but what Jim does have is 2 more islands in his hand and a Selfless Spirit. He's in a lot of trouble.
Wow. Selfless Spirit. Yeah, he'll play it and pass. Ugh.
That might have been pretty good last turn, you think?
Yeah, was there any thought to cracking the clue first to try to hit the courtyard?
There's an argument for it, though you wouldn't be able to courtyard and spirit.
And here goes Ben Friedman. Now that he swept the board and now he will turn the corner, it's Aetherworks Marvel. Jim shows no counter spell. And with Ben at 18, Jim still has a lot of work left to do.
And now 3 cards in hand, all of them lands.
Puts Ben to 14 and passes.
If Jim had Avacyn in hand, you could see how this game might be capable of being turned around.
Right, and that is something into his credit. The Avacyn is such a powerful card, especially with Selfless Spirit, that Jim is still 1 top deck away from making a game of it, but he's going to need it now because Ben has this Marvel in play, and you have to think he's going to start firing it off maybe this turn.
Right.
Yeah, he'll crack Vessel. That puts him to 4 energy. If he finds an Attune or a Servant or Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, yeah. He is not going to waste time.
And this is another game. Again, we have not seen Jim produce a Gideon the entire match, but if he had that on his turn 4, that would be reasonable. That turns up the heat.
Puzzle Knot from Friedman. Or Servant, rather. He had them both. Goes up to 6 energy. For Jim, he took that most aggressive line, did punish him. He made the double creature on turn 3. Had he picked Selfless Spirit as one of them, that would have given him insurance. So 6 mana and Marvel for Ben. He has to decide if he's main phasing the Marvel or if he's doing it during Jim's turn.
If he main phases and hits Ishkana, Jim could theoretically cast an Avacyn here, sacrifice the Selfless Spirit, and kill everything but the main Ishkana. Of course, Ben's found something a little bit better.
He's going to make it easy. He's going to promise Jim a quick end to this game. That is Emrakul. It's particularly good against Selfless Spirit. The Spirit's going to make a poor decision. 2 lands in Jim's hand, and so this should just about do it.
And Ben's going to know the contents of that hand and won't really have to worry too much.
Traverses. Ben wants to make sure he has everything covered. He wants a backup threat as well. Yeah, that'll be Ishkana. I don't think he's going to need it, but in case he does, there she is.
I think he's going to cast it, though. He doesn't have Jim dead on board. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think Ben can do whatever he wants at this point. So now we go to Jim's turn. Yeah, 2 lands, draws, Gideon. Well, that right on time. Right. Yep, okay, there's Selfless Spirit. It goes to the graveyard. Gideon makes an emblem. Jim's creatures are going to be bigger when he draws them.
Gideon,
He's got about 1 turn to do it.
Gideon showed up to the party after the cops already busted it. That's just really bad timing.
Jim draws an island. His hand is 3 lands, and he'll play it out. But this game ended on the Kozak's return. Ben set the trap perfectly. Jim walked into it, and that's going to send Ben to the finals. A swing here of 15 moves Jim to 3. He has no cards in hand outside of lands. Ishkana for Ben Friedman, and Gideon will not do it. So there is the handshake, and your #1 seed, Ben Friedman, he is on to the finals.
For Jim Davis, we'll be seeing him at the Players' Championship. We've known that all year. For Ben Friedman, he has a winner in. This is his chance.
This is big. So Ben is